and our BD manager, and we're here to take you through our masterclass, 6 Steps to Scaling Your Business. So I know you're going to get some valuable information out of today's session, and I think walk away looking at your business a little bit differently. At least that's our hope. And that's what we're going to take you through. So again, it is a masterclass, not a lecture. So we do have some breakpoints built into the presentation, so where we can stop, pause, talk about what we've covered. So that way we get some interaction with some folks who are in the room down at Headco, as well as the folks that are joining online. But if at any time you've got a burning question, don't be afraid to interrupt us and hit us with that question. All right. So as we get started, what we'd like to do first is introductions. And so if you can give us your name, your business, are you an owner or an employee? What's your number one business challenge? And what do you want to get out of today's session? And so Ray, why don't we jump to the room first, and I'll have you direct us around the room.
Okay. All right. I think I'll be fair, and I'll start with myself. I'm obviously an employee here at Headco. My name is Ray DeRosa, but I'm also a small business owner. I have a photography and digital communications business. I'm obviously the owner. I would say my number one business challenge is time. Having a full-time job and also having a small business, and being able to balance the two of those is difficult. So out of this session, I'd like to just be able to learn how to balance the time between doing those things, and learning how to, like I said, balance the time, but also investing in myself. And I'm going to pass it to the young lady in front of me, Miss Francis.
Okay, I'm Janita Francis. I'm an RN BSN and a certified foot care nurse. I'm just starting a mobile wound and foot care business, and I'm still working full time. So I'm here to learn, and I want to know about funding. I want to know about, like you say, time management. So like sometimes you debate, if there's a networking event, do you go to work or do you go to networking event? And if you don't go to the networking event, you're missing information that could be valuable, and people that you could be meeting that could help you in some way. So like for me right now, I could be at work. I have to go to work later, but I guess I choose to be here. So that's my spiel.
Okay, thank you.
And going behind.
Hello, my name is Ilka Torres. I am broker owner of Trevella Real Estate Advisors. We also own a restoration company, which I will let Yvette go into that spiel, my wife. I would say that we're owners. The number one challenge in the real estate world is in regards to agents, making sure that they have enough work, right? And that they're motivated. So I'm hoping for some ways to motivate them, I guess.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello, everybody. My name is Yvette. Our business, the second business is Rainbow Restoration. It's a franchise organization, so there's that complicating factor. But it's also an opportunity because they came with their own systems. So the challenge is learning that, right? And then teaching back to the team. We do have 2 full-time employees. We're just rounding out year 1, and I'm not where I want to be. So just being real, there's pressure, my own pressure on that.
Yeah.
And time is also a challenge. As you know, we have 2 businesses, so I'm often trying to help both do what I can, my part.
Thank you, Yvette.
Awesome. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Bryant. I'm the president of Leap Break Books, a bookkeeping company for small and medium-sized businesses. I am the owner. My number one business challenge is delegation. I stop short of a perfectionist, but I do like to do mostly everything. And no matter how much I try, there's only 24 hours a day. So what I want out of this session is, as I'm looking to scale and grow, that obviously can't coexist without delegation. So just looking to kind of marry those 2 things and find out.
Okay, great. We're definitely going to touch on that, Ray.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, David. Can you repeat?
Yeah, I was just saying, we're definitely gonna touch on that. So, the
right.
time is a common denominator, for everybody, so we're definitely gonna touch on that.
Perfect.
Is there anybody else in the room?
That's all in the
I'm
room.
in the next room, but I'm
Okay, Katanya?
close enough to the room. Katanya Huey, and while I am a small business owner, I have my own consulting company. Today, I'm really, 2025, I'm really focusing on how we can deliver the best training for our clients, for entrepreneurs, small businesses. And so today, I'm here with that lens on. I will tell everybody, and I can't say it loud enough, Dave and Dan are phenomenal. So definitely make sure that you take notes, pay close attention, because you will definitely learn today. And I think this will be a great session, just based on what everyone in the room has said. This will be a great seminar for you.
Okay. All right, so if we jump to the folks that are online, if you can come off mute, and again, I'll go back to the, if I missed it, there we go. So Diego Castillo, are you online with us? How about Elijah Livingston?
I can see Diego. I think you're on mute, Diego.
If you're with us, we'd like to know
Okay.
who you are, your business. Diego, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Diego Castillo. Good afternoon, everybody. I am a business owner for DC Restoration, and as we all have the uh, the challenge of finding customers myself, that's where I'm having troubles doing. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to here to kind of guide myself. This is my first year in the with the company, but I've been doing this for a while, so it's a little bit challenging, but um that's what I'm here to learn a little bit more about it.
Okay, thanks, Diego. And Elijah, are you with us? If so, you're on mute. Going once.
He put a message in the chat. Let's see. Elijah, are
Oh,
you able
nice.
to get off mute right now?
All right, if not, and I think we just had Chris Ann Miller join us.
Elijah will just be listening today. That's okay.
Okay. All right, is Chris Ann with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Chris Ann. We're just doing introductions. So if you could just give us your name, your business. Are you an owner, employee? What's your number one business challenge, and what would you like to get out of today's session?
That's a lot of questions. Well, okay, so maybe I'll ask you piece by piece. So introducing, my name is Christiane Miller, and I'm the owner and founder of the I Told Juicery Company. It's a vegan flexitarian kitchen. We're currently moving out of our space, as you can see. So, and I think we want to convert to a food truck that's more mobile. We could move around more. We could do more. Business challenges is really marketing is the hardest because I have good products, but marketing and getting to the right people, the right customer, like the target market. Because
Mhm.
in business, you're really in the business of marketing. Even if you're selling a piece of string, you got to know how to
Yeah.
market a piece of string to sell people sell it. But and that's true, you have to be able
It
to
is.
sell ice to an Eskimo. The Eskimo already have ice around it. How could you sell them a piece of ice when it's already surrounded by it, right? So I think having like a food truck would be my solution. I could move around more. I'm more mobilized, and now I have a tent. I'm always have to be like unloading and loading and loading and loading. The food truck would just solve everything. I've looked at the trailers. You still need a car to have the trailer. And I looked at probably a Nissan. It's too small, so I'd rather have like a truck with the engine that I could just drive one time. What were the other questions?
What do you want to get out of today's session?
Whichever way I could scale my business. Maybe it could be a food truck franchise. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Scale ways I could properly scale my business in a profitable way, but still maintain my company's values, which is all natural clean ingredients. So I notice sometimes when someone starts to scale, the recipe goes down like And then
Mhm.
the quality that you know is not there. So sorry for the noise.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Chris Ann. All right. So I think we've got everybody. I don't think there's anybody else that's joined us online. We got everybody in the room. So now we'll tell you a little bit about ourselves. So again, I'm David Olchowski, owner of Acadia Action Coach Business Coaching. Just a little bit of personal information. So I'm married. I've got a son and 2 daughters. I'm happy that they're all successfully launched in their careers. Before I did what I'm doing now, which I've been doing for about 4.5 years, I had a 30-year career in Connecticut aerospace manufacturing. Started at Pratt & Whitney, and about half my time with United Technologies companies, and went from an engineer starting out up into executive ranks, and not necessarily by design, but just when you're an engineer and you solve problems, you get promoted. And as long as what was on the other side of those doors that opened was attractive to me, I stepped through them. And by that, I meant it had to fit the lifestyle that I wanted. So don't mistake me for somebody who was a workaholic working 60, 70 hours a week. I like my free time outside of work, especially when I had a family. I wanted to be involved in my kids' lives, participate, go into their activities, coaching their sports teams. And that's the lifestyle that I wanted. And the way that I did that was I built teams around me. And I had a chance through that process of building great teams, they could build great businesses. And so it didn't need to be all about me. You surround yourself with good people, coach them up into great teams. They deliver great results for the business. And again, that was on my terms, what I thought was a better way. I saw an opportunity along the way that some other parents weren't able to be there. And some of those parents were business owners. And at that time, not being a business owner myself, I didn't understand that. I thought, if you're your own boss, why can't you make your own hours and be there when you want to be there? And as I poked at that out of curiosity, I heard those common refrains of business owners. When you own a business, it's like having another child. It's 24/7, 365. There's never enough time to get everything done. It's harder to make a buck nowadays. I can't find good people. I can't keep good people. All of those common things I heard, and I was not in a position to preach to them or lecture them at that time, but I just kind of tucked it away. And when I left the corporate world about 5 years ago, I knew I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to have my own business. I found business coaching, and it's really my next calling, because I love helping other people grow, develop, succeed, advance, whether it's in their career or if it's in business owners. And really my mission now is to help all of those business owners find more time and unlock the treasure chest, find that prosperity that's sitting in their business. And I knew to do that, coaching, relationships, and business community is the path to get there. I also knew at the time that I wanted to do something that was bigger than myself. So if I could just coach on my own, I could touch maybe 20, 30 businesses before my calendar's full. I wanted to have a bigger impact on businesses than that. So I started a firm which allows us to grow and scale and continue to add coaches as we impact more businesses. So to start out, I needed to bring in somebody who was going to help me with business development and also eventually help me coach clients. And that's how I found Dan, and I'm going to let Dan tell you about himself.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And thanks everybody for coming out today. Yeah, definitely a very different background than Dave. I am not from Connecticut. Originally was born and raised on Cape Cod and started my first business down there as a teenager. It was Calbro's boat cleaning. So that's where I got my business bug from, and have just been fascinated with businesses ever since. So went to Providence College, got my degree in business management, and started my career as a financial advisor. So coming out of school at 22, built my own book of business from scratch and have the scars to prove it, as I like to say. So learned a lot about sales and marketing early in my career. So did that for about 5.5 years, and then moved on to work in the travel industry. So was training travel agency owners in sales, helping them to develop and execute marketing plans, and getting sent around the world for free, which is an awesome perk of being in the travel industry until there's a global pandemic. And then that's not a very cool perk. So around the same time, as fate would have it, my brother and his wife had their first baby July of 2020. They've been trying to get me to Connecticut for like a decade. And I got one look at her and I was like, all right, you got me. I'm coming to Connecticut. So that's what brought me here. That's when I found Dave, or Dave found me, however you want to put it. And it was one of those, within 15 minutes of our initial conversation, we were both just really excited about the opportunity, both because we were aligned on our vision and our values, but really because we could tell we shared the passion for helping people, helping businesses, and helping the community. And that's what we're here to do, to help you and help the community thrive. So excited to have you here today. I know you're going to get a lot out of today's session.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dan. Just one caveat. I will let you know, I've been kind of sick the last week. And I don't know, I haven't tested my voice for talking for an hour. So if at any point I cut out, I'm going to have Dan jump in and pitch it for me, although he does have portions of the presentation to give. All right. So I'll give you that caveat up front. So we are going to talk a lot about time. So you are making a time investment today. And when you invest in things, you expect a return on that investment. And we're definitely going to differentiate those two things, investing your time versus spending your time. So what are you going to get out of your time investment? So simple, fast, easy ways to, one, free up your time. It is the common denominator for every business owner. Have not met a business owner who doesn't have enough time. All right. So it's going to be about freeing up your time. It is going to be about building a team, because if you want to have a business, that can do more, it is more than just about you. You need to have a team. At the end of the day, we measure that by increased sales and profits. And you'll hear us talk about money. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is reality. And you need to understand that. And we'll talk about that in Money Mastery. You'll learn about us and about how we do things. It's always first about learning. So this masterclass you're attending, that's the learning part. At the end, we're going to talk about what do you do to apply that learning. All right. That's the part 2 that's coming up at the end. So let me just tell you briefly who's with us. So this just isn't 2 guys coaching out of a van or something. But we are part of Action Coach. And I heard some other people on here who are franchisees. All right. We are a franchise. Action Coach is a global franchise. It has been around now for 32 years, launched in Australia and New Zealand in 1993. It's spread to 1,000 coaching offices in 80 countries around the globe. How can you do that? Well, at the end of the day, business is business. There's certain principles that apply, and our framework and approach for building and growing businesses works across the globe. All right. It works. And that's why we've been around for this long. All right. The other key thing, we're part of a vast support network. So we get coached. We have a master coach who's with an Action Coach. He's actually out in Milwaukee, but he coaches me and Dan twice a month. So we get coached. We take our own medicine because we know with a coach, we're going to get to where we want to go faster. So we're going to talk about 2 things. One, building a business. So 6 steps to scaling your business. That's about building it. And that means it's finished at some point in time, whatever your definition of finished is. We're also going to talk about, to get there, it's going to mean growing your business. And Dan is going to dive deeper into that. But before we start talking about building or growing a business, let's define a business. So this is our definition of a successful business. And you'll see how it ties into our 6 steps. 1, it's a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. And I'm going to walk you through briefly the 6 steps to scale your business. And then we're going to dive into each of these in more detail. But first, in any business, whether you've been around quite a long time, and I've met businesses that have been around for 20 years that still have chaos in them, or you're starting out, there's a lot of chaos. And so there's certain things that we need to master. And I'm going to dive into those 4 things. But so we got to get a mastery of certain things, create a solid foundation, eliminate this chaos. And once we've eliminated this chaos and created some stability, then we can focus on marketing. So a lot of people just want to straight to, I'm launching my business, I need to market. It's like, wait, if you don't have control, mastery of certain things, don't spend money on marketing, because you'll fail. And we're going to get into what those 4 things that mastery are. But after you've mastered those things, then you can really focus on marketing. And that's where you start to grow through significant growth. Dan's going to dive deeper into this section in a little bit. Step 3, once we've marketed and we've built predictable cash flow, because every business goes through these cash flow peaks and valleys. Once we've got cash, then we can really start to focus on implementing systems in our business. And so when we create systems, we get really great consistency, great repeatability, And with that consistency and repeatability comes efficiency. And when you become more efficient, what do? You get some of your time back. All right. Things get done faster, better, quicker. We get time back. And now we can start creating a structure for growth. And now we're up to step 4, where we're really starting to build this team around us so that we're not the cog working in the business. We've got a team around us that can help us grow the business. And then step 5, we're up to scale. And this is where you've got a well-oiled machine. And now you can either start to expand the services or products that you provide, or you can start to add multiple locations to your business. Some people have a dream of franchising. Maybe it's the time to do that now. But step 5 is about scaling. And then at the end, whatever your definition of finished was. So maybe you want to build a $5 million business and sell it, and that's going to be your retirement plan. Whatever your definition of finished was, you've gotten there, and now you've got the freedom to make the choices that you want. You could either collect passive income off the business, or you could sell it, but you've built this great business that's gotten you there. Now, everybody doesn't start at the same point in time. We've obviously got to build off a foundation, but everyone's working on multiple things at any given time. Our job is to understand what's the thing that's holding you back, and it's usually, let's go down to the weakest steps that you're at. So if you really don't have mastery and you think you're working on team, let's go work on mastery first. So everyone's got different relative maturity in each of these areas. Our job is to help to figure out what's holding you back first, and let's go fix that thing first. So that's how we get massive results. So let's dive into step 1, and this is mastery. And back to our definition of a commercial profitable enterprise that works without you. At mastery, it's just, do I have a commercial enterprise? All right. Do I have a viable business? Do I have a product or service that people are willing to pay money for? Because some people start out a business with, I can do this thing, and I'm going to start a business around it. But if it doesn't solve some problem in the world, and at the end of the day, any business exists to solve somebody's or multiple people's problems in the world. If you can't solve it better and or at a lower cost than somebody else, then it's not a viable business. So if somebody said, hey, Dave, I noticed in Granby, which is where our office is, where I live, there's no milkshake shack. It's shut down, and I want to open one. And I've run the numbers, and the business model says I need to charge $40 a milkshake. I would say no dice, because there's people, yes, there's been inflation, but people could do that for $5, maybe $7, not $40. So that's not a viable commercial enterprise. All right. But again, if you've got a product or service that people will pay money for, then you can now start to focus on this mastery step. And there's 4 areas that we need to focus on in mastery. So the first is destination. And so this is about where you're headed. Where are you going with your business? What is it that you're trying to achieve? It's about goal setting. So you could start with what's the end goal. So if you're starting out early in your career, where do I want to be in 20 years? How big of a franchise do I want to build this into? If you're more starting a business later in your life, maybe you've only got 10 years down the runway, where do you want to be in 10 years? You've got to set a goal. And so destination mastery is make sure you're clear on your goal, and then let's reverse engineer from the goal. What's the plan to get there? So destination, set a goal, have a plan to get there. Next is about delivery mastery. And this is just at the very basic level. Are you on time and on quality to your customers' expectations? If you can't be on time and on quality, whatever the customer's expectations are, don't bother spending money on marketing, because you'll spend money to attract new customers or clients. You'll disappoint them with your delivery, and then they'll go elsewhere. All right. And so you'll be in this perpetual, I got to buy new customers. So delivery mastery, very basic level, on time, on quality. Now, third area, money mastery. So this is really understanding how your business makes money and what you can change about your business to make more money. So this is understanding your financial statement. So do you produce a profit and loss statement for your business each month, a cash flow statement, a balance sheet? Those are the 3 basic financial instruments. Now, it's not saying you need to be a bookkeeper or an accountant, but you need to be versed well enough and have enough financial acumen to understand what those statements tell you about your business. So a lot of people maybe weren't good at math or were told by a teacher they weren't good at math, so they avoid those things like the plague. You have to embrace those and start to learn what they tell you about your business. That's money mastery. That's what we help our clients do, is understand their financials so they understand how they're doing and what they could change to perform even better. Then we're up to the fourth area, time mastery. It is the common denominator, the first place we always start first with our clients, because there is not a business owner we haven't met that is not busy. All right. And busy, actually, believe it or not, is a choice. All right. You do not need to be busy all the time, but we'll get into why. But that's the thing, is really understanding, mastering your time. We don't talk about managing your time. We talk about mastering your time. So let me dive into that deeper. It's in red because it's the most important thing, and I'm going to dive into it deeper. So there's 3 areas of time mastery. All right. There's self-mastery, and that's just making sure that you are focused on the most important things for your business. And so as a business owner, it's valuing your time. And what is your time worth in an hourly rate? Is it worth $100 an hour? If you're doing work that you could pay somebody 15 or 20 bucks an hour to do, and you're working 70, 80 hours a week, then we need to take that stuff off your plate and give it to somebody else. Now, what usually stops people from hiring an employee is like, I don't know if I can afford it. That goes back to money mastery. You don't understand your money. So master your money and understand that you actually can't afford to pay somebody to do that low-level work that you shouldn't be doing. So again, back to also the destination mastery, goals and planning. Whatever is the most important stuff that you should be working on to get to your goals, that's the stuff that you as the owner should be working on. So making sure you're focused on the most important things. So that's the first area of time mastery. Second area is planning mastery. So it is set that goal, have the plan to get there, but it's all time horizons of planning. It is the long-term planning that could be 10, 15, 20 years, but it's also the midterm planning. Where are you going to be in a year to 3 years? And do you have a plan to get there? And then the short-term horizons. What are you going to be doing in the next 3 months to the next year? And really where we break things down is into a series of 90-day plans, because in 90 days, you can turn things you want to accomplish into a series of actions, an action plan that will get you there. So that's planning mastery. You've got to be able to plan what I'm going to do today, tomorrow, next week, to where do I want to be in 10, 20 years. Some people good at one, not the other, long-term, but not short-term. Some good at short-term, not long-term. You've got to get good at all of those planning horizons. So that's planning mastery. Third area is delegation mastery. And I think I forget who mentioned it on here about, I think it might've been the bookkeeper on the call. Yes, there is stuff that you should not be doing, and it's got to come off your plate. So if you're doing something that you could pay somebody at a lower hourly rate to do, that's the first stuff to delegate. Probably what's holding you back is also in your head, the perfectionist complex, that nobody can do it as well as I can. That's because you have not systematized it. So systematize what you do so that somebody else can do it just as well as you do. All right, that's delegation mastery. Now I'm going to share with you our time target. So we kind of break down, if anybody's read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he breaks this into, 4 quadrants, an axis of importance and an axis of urgency. We've got our time target. So the first thing we see, the stuff that's out in the white zone, that's off target. All right. It's like off the bull. It didn't even hit the dartboard. It's not urgent and not important. And that's what we call distraction. All right. And we all can't be on point 8 out of 8 or 10 out of 10 hours a day. We all need some distraction, but we got to limit it to 10%. And understand, even if you're doing things that are well-intentioned, like I'm going to go on YouTube because I think I could use AI to help out my business. So I'm going to watch some YouTube videos that will help me implement AI in my business. Now, that's well-intentioned, but what happens on YouTube and every other platform that's out there. They are there to grab your attention. So when you're done with that first video, before you can even click out of it, the next video is queued up and it sucked you in. And before you know it, what you thought was maybe going to be 10 minutes, all of a sudden you spent in 45 minutes to an hour sucked into that YouTube vortex. All right. Same thing, even well-intentioned, like making connections on LinkedIn, or I'm just going to do a little Facebook just to see what's going on in my community. Before you know it, you're sucked in there. All right. So understand the things that are there to distract you. All right. There's forces at work against you to grab your attention. It's going to happen. Limit it to 10%. Now we're on the outer zone of the target, which is the urgent and not important. And we call that delusion. Now, what could delude us? What's urgent and not important? It's really somebody else's sense of urgency. It's not important that you address it right here, right now. All right. So that could be some phone calls, it could be some emails, and there's different tactics that we employ to help you control that. But again, we want to keep that to about 10%. It's somebody else's sense of urgency. It's not important that it gets addressed right this second. Now we're in the white zone on the target, and that's what is urgent and important, and that is demand, which should be ideally around 60%. That is typically doing the things that serve your clients and customers, the work in the business to deliver your product or service. That's should be about 60% of your time. And then we're into the bullseye, which is not urgent, but important, what Stephen Covey calls proactive work. And ideally, we'd love to grow that to 20%. If you measure this right now, it's probably far less than 5% that you spend working on the business. But we want to grow that over time to be 20%. And that's what we call working on your business, being in the zone. All right. And what's going to happen is if you did this yourself right now, did an assessment, you'd find that your bullseye is really small. Maybe even your demand is greater than 60%. That probably means you should delegate some of that demand off your plate. All right. But your delusion and your distraction are probably more than 10% each. That's the first thing to get control of. Shrink delusion and distraction to 10%. That helps you grow the bullseye to be able to work more on your business. So that's about time mastery. And now we're up to step 2, all right, which is about marketing. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Dan.
Yep. Thank you, Dave. So yeah, so now we're up to step 2, which is marketing. And going back to our definition, that now we're looking at creating a commercial, profitable enterprise. And as Dave said, a lot of times what we see with business owners is you go through these cash flow peaks and valleys where you do some marketing to attract clients, and then you get busy serving those clients and you're not doing the proper marketing while you're serving them. So you see your revenue come back down, then you do a bunch of marketing and you're kind of stuck on that entrepreneur roller coaster. So how do we make sure that we are getting consistent marketing? It starts by understanding what is your niche. And so I think a lot of times you hear, oh, well, you have to pick a niche. You have to pick a niche. If you're just starting out, if you just choose one niche, I hope you have deep pockets, right? So I think it's a misnomer that you have to choose one niche. You can serve multiple niches. You just need to speak to them differently. So we'll talk about how you go about carving out your niche, but before we want to talk about what is the definition? What is our definition of niche? So if I went around the room and I asked, what's your definition of niche, I'd probably hear things like, oh, it's the segment of the population that we serve best. It's what we do differently than our competition. And all of those are great answers, but for us, the Action Coach definition of niche is no price competition. And so you might be asking, what do you mean no price competition? Price is always a consideration, and yes, price is always a consideration, but we don't want it to be the only consideration, because when you are trading on price alone, it is a race to the bottom of who can tolerate the smallest profit margins. We don't play that game. We don't want you playing that game. And if you have a clearly defined niche, then you don't have to play that game either. So how do you go about creating your niche? For us, there's 2 pieces to it. The first is your unique selling proposition or your USP. And that is what makes you different. That is what you do differently than your competition. But you need to make sure that it is a differentiator that people are willing to pay money for. So if I had Diego's Plumbing, for instance, right? So Diego's Plumbing, they're the only plumbing company in town that drives around in blue truck. Like, is that a differentiator? Yes. Are people going to pay a premium for that? Probably not, right? So you really got to think about what value add can I create in my business that people will be willing to pay a premium price for. And then the second piece of creating your niche is a guarantee. We believe every business can have a guarantee, and people generally jump to, oh, you mean a money back guarantee? And it could be a money back guarantee, but creating your guarantee is really about understanding what are the fears that people have of doing business with your industry, and then how do you address them up front and take them off the table with a guarantee. So if we go back to Diego's Plumbing, for instance, what are the things that people are most concerned about when working with a plumbing company or really any contracting business? They're not going to show up when they say they're going to, and they're going to leave your place a mess, right? So if you're looking at two different advertisements right next to each other, and one of them is John's Plumbing, we've been in business for 27 years, we do X, Y, and Z, here's our license number, like basically looks like a carbon copy of the business card, which is about 90% of the marketing that I see out there. And then right next to that is Diego's Plumbing, and say, hey, we're Diego's Plumbing, and we guarantee that we will show up within 15 minutes of our scheduled call time, or your service call is free. And we guarantee that we will leave the place cleaner than it was when you got there. Which one of those companies are you going to call? You're going to call Diego's Plumbing every single time, right? So, and marketing's all about standing out. So Diego's Plumbing could also have the no crack guarantee, where they guarantee that all of their plumbers will be wearing belts when they arrive. All right. So you can have some fun with it. It's about being creative. It's about having fun, but really think about what are those fears? What are people concerned about when they're doing business with my industry? And take it off the table off the bat with a guarantee. So once we kind of have our niche defined here, we can really start looking at, all right, how do we start to really leverage our marketing here? And the good news and bad news about marketing. The bad news is that 80% of marketing will fail. The good news is that 20% works. As long as you test and measure, you can understand what's working, what isn't, finding that what is that 20% that works, turn the volume all the way up on the things that are working, and that other 80%, either tweak it or toss it, get rid of it. And so when you hear people saying, oh, mention this ad, or mention this coupon code, or scan this QR code, those are all indications that people are testing and measuring their marketing. But where you can start with that is just make sure you understand where your leads are coming from. So anyone that calls into your business, make sure that is the first question you're asking them. Where did you hear about us? That's the only way you're going to understand what marketing is working, what marketing isn't working, and then you can decide where do you want to turn up the volume. So as we start to look at how do we create marketing leverage, you'll see on the screen here there's two cars. There's the Volkswagen Golf and the Audi R8. And what I used to think was a rhetorical question, which would you rather have? And we actually had somebody recently tell us that they would rather have the Volkswagen Golf. So to each their own. To each their own. But the idea here is that both of these cars are built on the same chassis, right? So the foundation of these cars are the same. And if your car looks like the Volkswagen Golf and you want it to look like the Audi R8, we can change what's on top of that chassis. And chassis is going to look a little bit different in, say, a service business versus a retail business versus a manufacturing business. But really, the fundamentals of the chassis are largely unchanged. So that's how we start to create marketing leverage. We also call this our 5 ways to grow your business. So most business owners we speak to, they know 3 things. They know how many customers they have, what their revenue is, and how much profit they make, as long as they have basic money mastery at least. But we all want more of these things, right? We want more customers, we want more revenue, we want more profit. But you can't just go out and get these directly. These are all results. So we really have to focus on what are the inputs that are going to create the results that we want. So you'll see here in red the things we want more of: customers, revenue, and profit. And this is our business chassis here. So in blue, we'll talk about what are those inputs. So starts with lead generation. So if we go back to Diego's Plumbing last year, Diego's Plumbing had 800 people approach his business. He converted 50% of them into customers, gave him 400 customers. On average, each of those customers came back 2 times in a year's time. And each time they spent on average $1,000. Right? So that gives him a revenue of 800,000. And then after all the bills are paid, after all the employees are paid with a 25% profit margin, that gives us 200,000 in profit. So this chassis exists in every single business. So where you can start is make sure you are measuring your current business chassis, understand the current state. And that's what we do when we work with clients, is really get an understanding of what your current business chassis look like. And then we look to make improvements on each one of these inputs. So I'll start with lead generation, but I will preface this by saying unless it's a brand new business, we almost never start with lead generation, because it is 6 to 8 times more expensive to go and get a new customer than it is to get a customer that already knows, likes, and trusts you to do more business with you. But just for the sake of the flow of the math here, we'll start with lead generation. And we have over 70 strategies around lead generation. Not all of them are going to work in every single business. So our job is to kind of pick and choose what are the ones that are most likely to work in your industry, and then make sure you're testing and measuring your marketing. And a lot of times, a great place to start, if you haven't implemented a referral system, everybody loves referrals. So do you have a referral system? And by that, I mean a part of your customer journey is positioning referrals with them up front and making sure you're asking for them regularly. So a referral system is a great place to start. Otherwise, it's looking at other of those 70 strategies, testing and measuring your marketing. Can we increase that in a year's time? Absolutely. We're up to 880 leads. Then we start looking at conversion rate. So conversion rate is all about your sales process. And I talk to a lot of business owners that tell me, oh, I don't have a sales process. I just talk to people and some of them buy from me. I'm like, well, that sounds a lot like sales to me. So you need to be of the belief sales is not a dirty word, and nobody wants to be the used car salesperson, but sales is a noble profession. As long as you're doing it with high integrity and high authenticity, sales is a noble profession. It's just an exploration process of, does my solution fix your problem? Right? And if it does, then great, we'll work together. If not, that's fine. Right? So looking at conversion rate, that starts with mapping out your current sales process. What are all of the steps in your sales process? And have you flow charted it, and are you seeing where are people dropping off? Where are people saying no? And then you can start to look at, all right, how can we put some improvements on different steps in there? Maybe that's a great place to insert a guarantee, or to get testimonials from your clients. Testimonials are huge, a great conversion tool, and video is king. So 84% of everything consumed on the internet last year was video. 84%. So if you do not have video as part of your sales process, I highly, highly encourage you to get started there. So in a year's time, increasing that conversion rate from 50 to 55%. Now we're up to 484 customers. And we start looking at number of transactions. So usually what we want to start with for a number of transactions is what does your database look like? And a lot of times when I ask that question to business owners, they say, what do you mean my database? So how are people, your job as a business owner is to build your database and convert them into clients, right? So you need to be consistently creating and communicating with them on a regular basis. You got to stay top of mind. It used to be 5 to 7 touch points to make a sale. Now I've heard anything from 17, 25. Like, there's so much noise these days that if you're not staying in top of mind for your customers, you need to make sure that is a priority for you. So in a year's time, increasing the number of transactions to 2.2, then we start looking at average dollar sale. And that's all about cross-selling, upselling, downselling. So really making sure that your customers understand everything it is that you do, everything that you offer, because there is nothing worse than hearing these words. And I've heard these words from a client when I was a financial advisor. Oh, I didn't realize you did that. after they just wrote a check to my competitor, right? So how are you consistently making offers for if we go back to Diego's plumbing, now when Diego goes into a house, what he offers all of his clients free a free assessment of all the other potential trouble points in the house. So while he's there doing work, he's like, hey, I offer a free assessment, make sure that no pipes are gonna burst on you or anything. Do you want to take advantage of that? Of course I do, right? And then you can start planning future purchases with them, offering them upgrades. So make sure you have a system for making sure that all of your customers and clients understand what it is that you do and that you're planning future purchases. So in a year's time, that average dollar sale up $100 to 1,100, look what that does to your revenue, 1.17 million. And then we start looking at profit margins, and there's generally a lot of low-hanging fruit at profit margins. A lot of the time it's pricing. Talk to a lot of business owners that are terrified to raise their prices. They haven't raised their prices in years. There's probably room to move on your pricing, especially if you're being focused on the value add on your USP. And another big piece is time mastery. So how proficient are you with your time? So now our profit margins up to 27.5%. Look what that does to your bottom line. We're at 322,000. So that is a 46% increase in your revenue and a 61% increase in your profitability. And it's not magic. It's not rocket science. It's just 10% compounded 5 ways. So when we work, can you go back one slide, Dave? When we work with the client, the first thing we do is understand what is going on. What's going on with your current business chassis and how can you make incremental improvements? And look what that does to your bottom line. So make sure you're measuring your business chassis and start looking to make incremental improvements in each of these 5 ways. All right, we've done a lot of talking. We want to hear from you. Let's go around the room and hear what's your biggest takeaway or opportunity in your business so far from Mastery and Niche.
We could go around the room in back at Headco.
Someone has to volunteer, or I'm going to somebody.
Well, you have to delegate some of the tasks that you could pay less money for, like you have to balance.
Yes.
Am I gonna be making more money if I let somebody else do the job and cost me less? Or, that's a good thing. And that made me was thinking like some of the stuff I'm saying, okay, I want to learn to do this so I could do this myself. So I'm laughing about that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
And when it comes to delegation, I think that that's a really good point. I know sometimes delegation is like a hard idea. Like you're like, this is my business, it's my baby, but it's something where you have to really think about. This is my baby, but you also have to let go a little bit so that you can focus on some of the big ticket items.
Yeah. So a lot about delegation. It is about systematizing it so somebody can do it as well as you can. It's also there's things that you like doing that you shouldn't be doing, and it's letting go of the things that you like doing. That's good. Who else?
Yeah. This is Yvette. I like the idea of reframing the time spent. How can we make that bullseye bigger? I like that a lot. That makes me hopeful. I like also the chassis idea that, you could build up from there. You just got to know what those basic numbers are. So I like that idea as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good.
Awesome.
One of my big takeaways, I believe this was on the Mastery, was what are people concerned about within your industry? And then create a guarantee around that.
Yep.
I think that's a huge thing because you just kind of focus on, I do this well, I do that great. But listen to your customer. What are they really concerned? So I think that was huge.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Anybody online?
Yeah.
Chrissy or Diego? Elijah?
I think
Here I would say the marketing strategy of like saying, like he was mentioning, saying we arrive on time, we leave the property cleaner than it was before, and I think that would definitely help with my restoration business, as we have to go into homes when they're kind of like in a mess.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thanks,
Awesome.
Diego. Chrissy,
I'm in the real estate
Elijah?
business.
What are you saying again? Sorry.
All right, just looking for your feedback. What's your biggest takeaway or opportunity from mastery or niche that we've covered?
I think, based on, I feel like if someone starts from, from basic, and they're growing their business and they want to grow their business to a next level, I think mindset is everything. You probably got to let go of certain things. I want to do it all, everything, and delegate the task. That you're weak on. Like, say you're stronger in making a product, okay, do that. But bookkeeping and marketing, I think stuff like that needs to be delegated. But I feel like it takes funding to really do that. And I think overall, mindset is everything. The mindset has to be there to grow and to scale. Otherwise, if the mind is not ready, then the body can never be ready to move, to take action. That's my take.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for touching on that, Christy. So we don't talk a lot about mindset in kind of this 6 steps presentation, but when we're working with clients, mindset is everything. It's actually the beginning. You can't do things that aren't aligned with who you are. And so getting your head in the right space is absolutely necessary. So thank you for that, Chrissy. All right.
I'm sorry, David, we actually had another person here in
Yeah, please.
person here at Head Cup. So I'm sorry, you came in, I didn't get your name or anything.
Raymond Malcolm.
Oh, hi, my name is Raymond as well.
Okay.
So you said that you have a real estate company as well?
Right, and he touched on a lot of things that we touch on too, like we do yellow, green, and pink. And pink is first, your personal time, because that should be first. That's why we're working. Whatever you're working for is to enjoy yourself. And then he touched on the fact of being busy. And there's an acronym, being under Satan's yoke. Busy doesn't mean anything. Are you being productive? So you touched on that too. And the yellow part, and working on yourself is a big part of running a business. So we're talking about principles, and principles, one of them is to let go of the control and not try to control things that are menial tasks, like the $20 an hour task. And I struggle with that for years, and I'm looking for it. And it's hard to find good help. When you run a small business, you'll learn that. You want to find help, but you want help that's going to stay. You want help that's going to on time. But so the admin part for me to grow my business, the admin is big. A virtual assistant is big. Core, because I'm in real estate. 60-70% of my business comes from my core. It doesn't come from like paying for leads and buying leads. It actually comes from people that already know me, know my character, and I have to call them regularly. That's the practice of I do a log every day, and I make sure I call 22 people a day. And it does not have to be about real estate, because if you keep calling people about what you do, they're going to think you're just self-centered. It's all about you. So learning different languages, when I mean by languages, I don't mean like Spanish, French. I mean like you like to fish, you like the Eagles, you like this. Learning what some of your clients like and just putting that part of the conversation, and not necessarily always making about what you need to get out of whatever your business is. So you touched on a lot of this stuff. I need to offer a guarantee for my business. I don't know what it is. I'm cheap. I need to just say, for the buyers should get warranties on the houses. What would their fear be? Buying a house and then closing the deal and needing something. And it's nothing for me to offer that, a couple of dollars out of each closing. And I need a product. So you had me thinking about that. And videos. I'm 59 years old. My plan would be a 5-year plan, like how to get my business to generate itself. But the reality of it is that I need to get with technology a little bit more. This game has changed.
Yeah.
I need some video presence and some marketing presence.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, I think we got everybody. So with that, we're going to move on to step 3 now. All right, so step 3 in our 6 steps, it's about systems, and systems, back to our definition, This is where we've got a commercial profitable enterprise that works. So that works piece means you get the same output, the same result each and every time, regardless of who's doing it, whether you're doing it or your brand new employee is doing it. All right. That's when you've got really good systems. So key to business success, it's leverage. All right. When we implement systems, we build leverage in the business. And with a lever, you get more output with less input. And to get there, you've got to divide to multiply. So Dan just talked about marketing leverage, where we went from lead down to profit. We divided it into those 5 ways. And when we make improvements in each of those 5 ways, we multiply, we compound the effect. Same thing with systems in your business. So if you're doing something and you say, I do this thing and it takes me 4 hours to do it, I can't systematize it, I would say nonsense. Because I guarantee you in that 4-hour process, there's probably 3 hours worth of work that's redundant that you could systematize and train somebody at a lower hourly rate than your time is worth to do it and get the same result. And that way, when we break big things down into small pieces, we make improvements and we multiply the effect. So leverage, it's about systems. So we love acronyms because it helps you remember things. Systems it's about saving yourself time, energy, and money. And within Action Coach, we got a whole book about it, Instant Systems. And there's 9 steps to systematizing your business. The first 3, vision, mission, culture. This goes back to the destination mastery. So that's really about where you're headed. And so if your destination, let's use the analogy of we're going to climb Mount Everest, and we're going to get to the top of the world. The vision is where you want to be, the top of the world, the summit of Mount Everest. The mission statement is how you're going to get there. What's the path? We're going to start at base camp and go to camp 1, camp 2, camp 3, camp 4, and then we're going to hit the summit. And the culture statement is about how you're going to work together as a team to get there. That's really important in your business. If you don't have these things, and I'm going to classify these 3 things together and encompass your values, and it's about the purpose of your business. So you need to have a purpose of your business so that systems are aligned with that purpose. Then we need to have SMART goals. So if you're not familiar with the SMART acronym, it's specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, and time-bound. So that way you're really clear about what it is that you're trying to achieve in your business. And you've got to have an organization chart. And so understanding what are all the different hats that are worn in your organization. You may very well be wearing 5 hats, and that's okay, but define them as different hats, because as you grow and expand, you will delegate certain hats and give those hats to other people to wear. That's the delegation piece. So you got to know who you're going to delegate it to and what is the role that you're going to be delegating it to. And then around that organizational chart, each of those jobs needs to have a positional contract. You may be wondering, does that mean a job description? And I'll say that's necessary, but not sufficient. So the positional contract does include the typical things in a job description. What's the role, responsibility? What are the tasks that you're going to be doing? What we all know also want to include in that positional contract, how success will be measured. So that when you hire somebody, when you hire somebody, you are paying for a result. So be really clear on the result that you're paying for, so that when somebody comes in, you say, these are the results we expect from you doing this job. Be clear on it. So when it comes time for their probationary review, there's no guesswork involved whether they've been successful or not. And how we measure that success is through KPIs, key performance indicators. That's how we know that somebody is doing a good job in that position. Then after we've done these 7 steps of the foundation, then we get to the step 8, which is the how-to systems, how to do things in your business. They can be things, very simple things, from a checklist of how to clean the restroom at a restaurant to how is your sales and marketing team going to keep in contact with their sales pipeline, have a CRM, a customer relationship management software platform that helps them manage their pipeline. So again, in every shape in between. So how-to systems, and then ultimately we need management systems, which if the how-to is operating the business, how do we manage the business? We have to have management systems in place. Some of that's going to be on a monthly basis. We look at our financial statements, so we know how the business is performing. That goes back to money mastery. So these are the 9 steps to systematize your business. Where do you start? So we break it into 4 key areas. So 1, we want to be building systems around people and education, because we always want to be building a much better, more educated, stronger team. And so we need to have systems around people and education. We need to have systems around systems and technology. So technology makes us better, faster, more consistent, more repeatable. So we want to have systems around that technology. We want to have systems around delivery, distribution, and I'll throw service in here as well. So if I talked at mastery about delivery mastery was just make sure you're on time and on quality. Systems around delivery and distribution are in pursuit of customer delight. Because if we're pursuing customer delight, no one will take our customers from us. No one will steal our clients. Because business is a race. There's always somebody trying to eat your lunch. And if you are constantly pursuing delighting your customers, no one will steal your clients from you. All right. How do you do that? Ask them. What are we doing well? What could we do better? What aren't we doing that you would like us to do? Do customer surveys so you can find out how you can serve them better. And then systems around testing and measuring. So while Dan talked about testing and measuring all of your marketing, which you absolutely must do, eventually we want to test and measure and continually improve everything in our business. Continually test and measure your systems, because as your business grows, you will outgrow your systems and you'll need to re-systematize. So we need to be measuring those things so we know when it's time to re-systematize. So now we're up to step 4, and this is where we've got a commercial profitable enterprise that works without you. So for it to work without you, we need to have a team. And so as a coach, this is what we help you build your team. So we work with the owner. And so the owner is focused on the team, and they support the team by giving great direction, great leadership, paying the bills, staying profitable, giving encouragement, building really good systems for the team to operate. Because when the owner supports the team, then the team can support the clients. And they do that through great sales and great service skills, great quality, great consistency. Because when the team takes care of the customers take care of the business. And they do that by coming back more often, spending more money each time, sending you referrals and telling everybody about your business. And at that top of the customer ladder of loyalty, they're a raving fan, and they're actually your virtual sales force. So when the customers support the business, now the business supports the owner. And they do that the business supports you as the owner by making you more profitable, putting more cash in your bank account, and giving you more time to enjoy that with the people that you care about. So this is the cycle that we coach on. Now, to build that winning team, there's 6 keys to building a winning team. It starts with you providing strong leadership. So many business owners find themselves with a team, and they've maybe never been in any kind of supervision or management or leadership position before, and they're a deer in the headlights. So we got to make sure you're providing the right leadership. Next, we got to have a common goal. So everybody is pulling in the same direction. We're not working off of different agendas. Everybody's focused on the same goal. Then, subset of culture, we've got rules of the game. So how is the team going to work together? How do we decide who leads the team? Is it rotating? Do we vote on it? How do we resolve conflict? How do we decide what to work on? How do we set goals for the team? All of those are rules of the game for the team. And then the team's got to have an action plan, number 4. So we know who is doing what by when, so there's accountability. And that's good winning teams have great accountability, hold each other accountable. Step 5 is about risk taking. So because the customer on that previous circular chart, that cycle, they're supporting the customers, they're going to see the opportunity to improve your delivery, your service, your products. So we want to support their risk taking and making that customer or client experience better. And then in terms of continually improving everything, we have 100% involvement and inclusion. So it means everybody's included. It's not like we just got a separate small group of people that's focused on improving things. Everybody's included. And if everybody's included, it means everybody needs to be involved. People don't get a chance to say, no, thanks. I don't want to be a part of that. If you're on the team, you're involved. So that's the keys to a winning team. How do we build that team? Finding, hiring, and retaining is a huge challenge for every business owner now. The first thing to decide is when to recruit. So we do some of that task and time analysis. Look at that time target. Are you doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing? So back to time mastery. If you're doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, it's probably time to recruit and delegate that to somebody. So do some task and time analysis. We got to look at how much your time is worth. If it's $100 an hour, you're doing something you could pay minimum wage for, get it off your plate so you can do more $100 an hour work. Then look, it is a spike in activity or is this permanent demand? So are you continually growing and like, yes, this is permanent demand, or is this like a 1 or 2 week project that's going to go away? So different ways to handle that. And then different ways you could hire an apprentice, a subcontractor, or a W-2 employee. So there's different ways to solve that problem. But if you decide it is time to recruit, finding the right team. Finding the right team is a marketing challenge. So as Dan talked about, we've got our sales funnel. We've also got our hiring funnel. So getting new candidates to the top of your hiring funnel is a marketing challenge. I will tell you, some people complain, the millennials, Gen Z, they don't want to work. They don't have the same work ethic. They do, all right? I've got kids that are that generation. They do want to work, but they want to work for a business with a purpose that has a vision, has a mission, has a good culture. So you got to define those things. Those things together will help define the purpose of your business. Use that in your marketing material to attract the people to the top of your hiring funnel. The other thing is looking at skills versus attitude. A lot of people get enamored with somebody's resume and say, oh, this person is a great fit. Well, I will guarantee you that people are using AI to create the perfect resume for your job posting. And that's why they look like a great fit. But they've got a bad attitude. So we got to flip that around. We got to look for the right attitudes first. Then we can always train for skill. All right. If we've got good systems, we can train people to operate our system. So look for attitude first. Then think about where you're fishing for these clients. And, ZipRecruiter, Indeed, those commercials will tell you it's so easy to find good people. All right. It's not easy. All right. You've got to decide where you're fishing. And I did find Dan on the vast ocean of Indeed. And I'll tell you, I used step number 6, the deselection process. But you got to decide where you're fishing. Maybe it's on the vast ocean, but maybe it's actually in a small little pond where those candidates are. All right. So think about where you're fishing. Key thing about marketing, you have to stand out. If you all you've done is take somebody else's job posting and just like change a few words, change the company name, it looks just like everybody else's posting. So you got to have a posting that stands out from everybody else. And then we talk about a deselection process. So rather than you deciding who's going to make it to the next step of the process, set up deselection criteria where the candidate needs to take a step and make a decision in the process to move forward. And what happens is you get fewer candidates through that funnel, but better candidates. That's how I found Dan. All right. So finding is marketing. Hiring, it's selling. All right. So 1, benchmark, understand what other companies are doing out there. Definitely with inflation over the last 4 years, base wages and comp has increased. You're going to have to be at market. So definitely benchmark around wages and comp. But also think about like, what are other people doing in terms of hiring? Understand what some of the best in the industry are doing. Have some incentives, what we call critical non-essential. So it may be something that you don't put in your base job posting, But it could be, you ask people, like, is there something that you would need that we haven't put in our offer to have you accept our offer? And maybe somebody says, I'm going to need I've got an aging parent and I need some flexible time off to take care of him or her. And maybe you could offer that time off, that flexibility, but you're not thinking about that in your base job posting. So think about what are those critical non-essentials that may get somebody through the bottom of your sales funnel. Then think about employee acquisition costs. So what's it costing you not to fill this position today? So back to Dan's example of Diego's plumbing with the blue trucks. Well, he had 5 trucks on the road. One of his guys quit, and now he's got 4 trucks on the road. What does that 5th truck bring for you every week in profit? That will change the calculus about what you're willing to do to fill that position quicker. If it's costing me $5,000 a week in profit, I'm going to move really fast to fill that position. Not necessarily in base wages and compensation, but it could be in terms of a sign-on bonus. Like, would I pay a $10,000 sign-on bonus to get the right candidate to fill that position 2 weeks earlier? I probably would. So when you do that, what's it costing you not to fill the position? It starts to change the calculus in your head. And at the end, you've got them to the bottom of your funnel and you want to convert them. You need to be a great boss and a great business. This guy ties back to your purpose. If you're not clear on why you're a great boss to work for or a great business, you got to get clear on that, because that's what they're going to want to know. Why should I come work for you? All right. What are you going to do for me? All right. Now, you've got them through the funnel. They're your next great employee. Now you need to keep them. All right. You have to have a program and a system around retention. So again, benchmark. What are others in the industry doing in terms of retention programs? It's not saying you need to have beanbag chairs and foosball tables like Google, but maybe you do. Maybe you want to. All right. Have stay interviews. So if you've got people, if you've been in business a while and you've had people who've been with you for a long time, ask them, why have you stayed here? For your brand new employees, ask them, what will it take for you to stay here? I guarantee you one of those things that will be necessary is growth and development. Point number 4. All right. Growth and development. It is going to be important to talk about it in your marketing. It will be important to talk about it in your hiring process, your sales. All right. I put it here in retention because this is when you actually need to deliver on growth and development, because I do believe every human being wants to grow and develop throughout their lifetime. So you need to show them that when they work for you, they're going to have opportunities to grow and develop professionally. And so be clear on that. Have some retention incentives. So that could start out as, we do merit increases every year. And so when somebody has hit their KPIs, they get a salary increase. If they've knocked their KPIs out of the park, all right, they get an extra bonus. All right, it could be profit sharing, next step above that. So when the company does well, everybody shares in that success. And then kind of at the top of that ladder of loyalty and retention is when you found your forever employee, give them some equity stake in the business. Have them be an owner. It's not saying you need to make them a 50-50 partner, but give them some incentives to want to stay with the business long-term, because when they're acting like an owner, they will make better decisions. Last, certainly not least, engage and empower. So I do believe also that everybody wants to have some control of their own destiny. So engage them, get their ideas about how they think you can improve the business to move the business forward. And then once they've got a good idea, empower them, give them the leadership opportunity to lead that initiative. All right, take those things off your plate. So engage and empower. Now, those are the key parts to having a good retention system to keep the good people that you've got. You're never going to eliminate turnover. What we want to do is minimize it. And you got to do that through a retention system. All right. Now we're up to steps 5 and 6, scale and freedom. So scale and freedom, it's about growth. So if you've opened up one location, now you want to go 2x, 5x, 10x. That's the scale factor. Once you've created that well-oiled machine, we can replicate it. And then at the end, it's about your freedom. Do you want to have passive income for the business? Do you want to sell it, have a wealth event? Whatever your choice is, you've got the freedom to do that. We're not going to dive deeper into this because that kind of is a whole separate masterclass. How do you mentally prepare for that next phase of your life? How do you really stop working in the business and only work on building businesses? That's a whole separate masterclass. So last break point here is we'll go around the room and just what's your biggest takeaway from this session? So Ray, I'm going to have you direct us around the room at Headco.
Value my time and know what I can put out, what I cannot do anymore, let somebody else do it.
Okay. Yeah, same here, honestly. Anybody else? What was your biggest takeaway from today's session?
I think that that's a good takeaway. It's a big one first. I feel like that's my first step, really. Doing like an audit.
Similar for me, and I know we have someone starting like this week, so trying to start gauging as to what my expectations are for this person and how to like Dave said, how to I guess gauge, right? And how to gauge whether they're doing their job or not, and how to I guess evaluate that, right? If they're doing what I need them to do, or how to pivot if they're not.
Okay.
My biggest takeaway was systemization. I think that's absolutely necessary in order to delegate. So just focusing on those processes.
Good, thank you.
I like the concept of positional contracts and basically setting benchmarks. So knowing exactly when you're hiring somebody, what exactly tasks that you need them to perform, and trying to get to elevate those tasks.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
How about you guys, Diego, Chrissy?
Hi. For me, it would be knowing to know when to start delegating stuff to other people, and the marketing strategies, and yeah, those two are the biggest ones.
Thanks, Diego.
Great.
Chris, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, what's your biggest takeaway?
I think knowing when to delegate, because sometimes as a single membered LLC or the person that's wearing so many hats, you kind of get burnt out sometimes. But knowing when to delegate and having the capital and the resource to do that also comes with it. So sometimes as a single membered LLC, you end up doing everything, maybe not the bookkeeping stuff or something like that, but you end up doing 99% of the stuff, and you end up not being able to delegate because of capital, lack of funding, all that stuff falls into place. Because I think that's why some single member of the LLC just stick to being the person that wears all the hats.
Yep.
So that could be a challenge too. And if they don't see a way out, then they're just gonna continue doing in my terms, I call it like the eight-legged octopus. I mean, as a human being, you only have one brain and two hands, 2 feet, but octopus has like 8 legs and probably 8 brains too. So I think, sorry. I don't mean to be a comedian, but that's how I kind of look at it. It's like us, because I'm a single membered LLC and I'm like playing the octopus role right now. Besides me having just one brain, 2 legs, 2 hands, it's like, I mean, and other entrepreneurs can relate. Like once your business starts to grow, it's like you gotta have all that stuff into place to keep it going. But when you become this eight-legged octopus, it's like you got burnt out.
Yep.
You know, so that's just my take on it. You know, knowing when to navigate that delegation part.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. I think that's everybody. Unless Katani, if you want to comment.
I am here. No, I just enjoy listening to everybody. I just been really taking notes so I can understand what our clients need and what really the small business marketplace is looking for. So this was great for me.
All right. Good. Thank you, Katani.
Awesome.
All right, folks. So we're close to the end, so we'll start to wrap up. So Jim Rohn, business guru, our founder of Action Coach, Brad Sugars. Jim Rohn was an early mentor for him when Brad was like 14 years old. So here's one of his famous quotes: "To never wish life were easier, wish that you were better." So work harder on yourself than you do on your job or your business. And so if you want your business to grow, you need to grow. You need to be continually learning. You need to understand what are those things that are holding me back from taking the next step in my business. So it's great that you all have a learning mindset, that you're here today for this masterclass, but it's always about what's the next thing that I need to learn that's preventing me from taking my business to the next level. Very briefly, who do we work with? Again, we are business agnostic. These are just some of the niches that have developed for us over the years. We work with professionals. So we work with a lot of attorneys, law firms, accounting firms, financial planners. We work with a lot of people in the trade space. So contractors, electricians, plumbers, HVAC. So again, how do you attorneys in trades? They all know their skill, either the legal field or the trade space, but there's a lot that they don't know about running a business. So that's why a lot of those folks gravitate towards us. We do work with people in real estate, architects, interior designers. We work with not-for-profit businesses, what we call for-impact businesses, as well as people in the IT, telecom, digital marketing space, and then my own sweet spot, which is manufacturing. So how do we work with those people? We got a variety of different group coaching programs, from one-to-one coaching, which is the fastest, down through Mentor Club, Action Club, Growth Club, Profit Club, different types of group coaching programs. And it's really kind of a matter of how fast you want to go. So we got different shapes and sizes for the speeds and what people are looking to get out of it. As well, we do kind of one-off things like strategic planning. We do executive coaching when we're working with public companies. That scale and freedom, that's really about succession and exit planning. And then the seminar club, that is things like time mastery workshops, team building workshops, culture development workshops, some of those things that we run one-off. So I'll bring you to our close. So we talked about the learning, the master class. That's the learning piece. That's part one. And now we're up to part two, which is applying what you've learned. And I would hazard to guess you're in one of two places. You may be, hey, I learned a lot. Thank you, Dave and Dan, for coming. I want to try it myself, and that's fine. Question for you is, if you wanted to do it yourself, why haven't you done it already? Second place you may be is you want to explore what coaching can do for you and your business. So if that's where you are and you want to learn the shortcuts to building that better business and how to apply what you've learned today into your business, we offer a complimentary 90-minute business strategy session. We will take you through our discovery process where we're going to learn about you, your business, your goals, what are the challenges existing in your business right now. You're going to learn about us, about how we work with our clients, what do those different coaching programs look like. So we're going to learn about each other. We'll sit down after the court first, having a couple of phone conversations. We'll sit down for that 90-minute strategy session. And we're going to map out for you what we think you need to do to get you from where you are to where your goals are. So if you are interested in taking us up on that offer for the 90-minute strategy session, if you're online, you can just drop your name and email into the chat. For those folks in person at Headco headquarters, I would just ask that you give Ray your name and email, and Ray will send those to us, and then we will be in touch about how we start that discovery process. And my rhetorical question is, why wouldn't you do that? All right. So that's our offer for you today. So again, If you're in person, give Ray your name and your email address. If you're online and you want to take advantage of that, pop your name and your name and email address in the chat, and we will be in touch about how to start that discovery process. So that's it for today. We thank you for your time and attention. We ended just right on time. Some good time mastery. So we appreciate your time today, and we thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave and Dan.
Thank you.
And just thanks to everybody else for joining as well. We appreciate you coming out today. Thank you.
Everybody have a great day.
All right, take care, everybody.
Have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Friday.